Welcome to the Inner Temple, a mystic Mandala podcast. This journey is not outward, it is inward. It is a space for stillness in a noisy world, a space where ancient wisdom meets modern life, where conversations are not just heard but felt. Here we sit with healers, teachers, spiritual guides from across the DFW community, individuals who are not here to fix you, but to remind you of something deeper, something already whole within you. Because here at Inner Temple, we believe healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you have always been. And today we are honored to welcome a truly grounded and heart-centered guide, Reverend Lee Wolak, a minister, a teacher, an author devoted to helping people remember their nature, their true nature. As the founder of Agape Spiritual Center, he creates spaces where there is no judgment. He softens and meets life where it is with you. With simple clarity, a Zen-like understanding, he presents lessons which are transformative. Lee lives with a powerful yet humble intention to touch at least one life every day. To him, transformation doesn't come from grand gestures, but from genuine presence. In every moment with every person, he brings a rare kind of intimacy, the willingness to be fully there. He's the author of The Power in You, a devoted husband, a proud father, and a joyful grandfather. So take a deep breath, relax, and get ready to enjoy conversation with Reverend Lee Wolak here at the Inner Temple.
Yep.
Welcome, Reverend Lee.
Vijay, it's great to be with you. I look forward to sharing this conversation because when we get in conversation, man, things just fly. So everyone pay attention because Vijay and I got some words for you.
I know. I always, every time we are hosting a guest, I'm like always nervous. I want to try to read a little bit more about them to find out what the appropriate questions would be. And I know today we are speaking about relationships. And I just have a feeling that to start a conversation on relationship, I have to ask you this. The relationship itself, where do you place it in life?
That relationship is number one. The ability to love yourself is the most important relationship you have because without self-love, we have nothing. So let's explain what love is. Love is simply the awareness and acceptance of our wholeness. Now really think about that concept, the awareness that you're aware and you accept that you're already whole. Meaning you understand that you were created by something infinite, beyond belief. Call it God, call it spirit, call it whatever you want. But it created you out of it. Meaning you're created out of God's stuff. And you're an individualization of it. It chose to individualize yourself. So you're perfect because you were created out of all that is. And so if you can understand that, you realize that you are perfect right now and you don't need to judge yourself. And you see, that's where we've gone astray. We think that judgment is a natural thing. Judgment is a phony thing. When we judge ourselves, we're not loving ourselves. So how do we live a life like that? I teach that everything begins with you and everything begins with self-love. It's the only place we can begin.
That is deep, and we'll have to dive deeper. So when I was speaking to you last week over the phone, you mentioned that connection is the foundation of everything. So in a few words, one must learn to ground or settle or connect to self before they begin to connect with others?
Yeah.
And do we really meet people at the root, or do we meet them just like a tree at the branches?
I would say this, my ability to connect with you is only as deep as my ability to connect with me. I cannot love you, accept you, more than I accept myself. So it all comes back to that self-love thing. So I believe there are relationships that are most important. First, my relationship to myself, knowing who I am, that I have a purpose. My purpose is to become more aware, to experience greater love, to be fully experienced in it. And then from there, to have a relationship with other people like yourself or whoever I'm meeting. And then it's also then to have a relationship with that infinite part of me. that part of me that's always constant, that's the observer within me, to realize that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not these emotions, but I'm that which is observing that. And so there's a spiritual level of a relationship, there's the mental level, there's a physical level, and there's the emotional level. And you balance those. See, a lot of times I see a lot of great spiritual teachers and they go, let's go all spiritual. Well, wait a second. We came into this planet with a body, with a mind, with emotions. There's a reason. And I believe that reason is to fully experience as much of life as you can possibly imagine. And you do that when you love yourself first. Because if you're not judging, you're open to see a greater world. If you're judging, you're automatically judging the world and you're going to see a very limited part of it. So that's where I start, with me, and then it's a relationship outside of me. I want to say, I believe that relationships have changed dramatically in the last 5 to 6 years. And I don't think it's good. I think it's a combination of two things. I think it's social media, and I think it's also what happened during COVID. In COVID, we were separated. We were taught we had to separate from each other. So people were isolated. And I found that people have yet to come back and be involved in communities where they can be loved and supported. I think that's real important. And now you've got this social media thing where people think that everyone's got this great car, got this great home, these perfect relations, perfect man, perfect. Those are all made up. The fact of the matter is, life is, as we would say, imperfect and yet perfect, because life is there to challenge you to grow. And so I think it's real important that we come back to this idea to connect with ourselves, to connect with the divine, to connect with each other, and to fully experience all that this world has got to offer, because it's magnificent.
When you say that modern living is now in a way where spiritual teachers are relevant, or the talks they have or the lessons they bring is important, how would you identify yourself with the teaching of a teacher or a guru or a guide? Now, I know that you're the founder of the spiritual center Agape, but how do you feel? Is it a job that you took on as a profession, or you just went into it and just became who you are now? Which I know is, when I call you reverend, I mean it from my heart. Having met you so many years ago, I've always been an ardent admirer of your teaching, and I have followed your journey, not only as someone who has learned a lot, because I would say that maybe someone is a few years ahead of you in spirituality, but then there are other people who may be lifetimes ahead. So I am always deeply appreciative of the lessons that you bring. But coming back to my question, do you see yourself as that guide, and what brought you to this stage in life?
I'll tell you, it's an inner calling. And it was an inner calling that I had when I was 7 years old. And I remember I was brought up as Catholic, it was midnight mass, and the second graders were singing at midnight mass. And I walked up that spiral staircase going up to the choir loft, and this feeling came over me that I cannot even describe. I think it was a God experience, a divine experience. And then I remember when I was in 7th grade, a minister, Father Scanlon, he was brand new, and he leaned in and he talked to you. And that touched me and moved me. I went to the seminary. They kicked me out of the seminary after a year because I asked too many questions. I have a voracious curiosity. And so I gave up religion. I gave up all religion until I hit about 47 years of age. And instead of going off and having an affair, going through a midlife crisis, I said, there's got to be more to life. And then I started pursuing it. And I started off at Unity. Then I found religious science. Now that I've been a part of religious science, I've studied under Dr. John DeMartini, who is a master of human behavior. I've studied under Dr. Joe Dispenza. I've got a lot of study with both of these gentlemen. I study with Michael Singer. I've gone to India. I've studied with 5 or 6 different gurus and teachers. I've gone into the jungles of Peru. I'm about to go back into Nepal again because I have this insatiable curiosity that I don't follow anyone, but I know there's truth in all teachers. And so I take what that truth is, I apply it to my life. If it works in my life, then I teach it. And I teach it and I say to people, first off, don't believe a word I say. Test it. See if it works for you. And then if it works for you, you own it. It's not Lee teaching you. It's you teaching yourself because you're the teacher in your life. And that's how I've always been. People say, who's your mentor? Who's your guru? I said, the infinite, God. Everyone else is just an expression of God. So it's still God experiencing through me. So I've learned never put anyone on a platter. And you'll find that when I'm doing my teaching, I'm pretty raw. And I'm raw and I'll say some crazy things. And I do that very deliberately because I don't want you to put me on that pedestal. I don't want you to think I'm better than you, above you, or whatever. I think in every way, we are individualized expressions of God and we're on our own unique journey, on our own unique timeline, and there's no right or wrong.
So for all those who want to enjoy Reverend Lee Wolak, unfiltered and raw, you can follow his podcast. We'll drop the link below. So the guru appears when the student is ready is literally what you believe in.
Yeah.
And all this traveling and seeking and searching, it makes you more of a seeker than anything else.
It does to a degree, but I now realize I don't have to go to Nepal. I don't have to go around Mount Kailash. I am the divine right here in this room right now with you. And as I'm that right now with you, I'm having that same divine experience right here. When I go to these places, it's to open my mind to bigger things than I've imagined. And when I went to India the first time and I saw that unique culture there, oh my God, it opened me up and I didn't realize how good we've got it here in the United States. Now, I'm not saying they don't have it good. They've got it magnificent there because they have a different value structure and they're just as happy. One of my favorite teachers is Paramahansa Prajnanananda. And Baba is the teacher of Kriya Yoga. So he's of the lineage of Paramahansa Yogananda. And Baba's this little guy. He's about 5'3", big bushy black hair. Now it's gray and black. And he's got a big bushy gray and black beard. And we met at a silent retreat and we connected. And so when we see each other now, he'll come to Dallas. We'll be in a group of 500-600 people. He'll see me and he runs over, Baba Lee, Baba Lee. I go, Baba, Baba. We run over, we hug each other.
A silent retreat. The conversations must have been amazing.
Oh, he'll pull me aside and say, tell me what you think. Tell me what you feel. And you realize because when the first time I met this man, I looked into his eyes, BJ, I saw more love than I've ever seen in any human being on the planet. And he became a role model. Because I believe that if you find people who've got something going on, let's model them. Let's look at them and see, how are they doing? What are they doing? And is it authentic for me to be that way? I can't be like you. I can't be anything else. But I can be the most authentic Lee in the world. And when I do that, I'm self-loving. If I'm faking who I am, that's not love.
Fabulous. So when you said that social media is one of the main influencers of relationships now in the young, I have a question for you. Yes, we are encouraged. I wouldn't say that it's the death knell for everything that is tragic and wrong with the world. It is just that everything spreads very quickly. So there is a lot of misinformation by anyone who has a cell phone. They can just put out some information out there, which may not be really useful or relevant or I would say like an expert advice. I feel that most people are now not looking at the other for a relationship, for love. I think they're looking for entertainment. They are so generously enjoying the doom scrolling of Instagram reels and TikToks, that they want to find the same level of entertainment in the other. And if they don't find it, they are not able to sustain the relationship. So the question is, how does one build, if you're talking to a young person between the ages of 20 and 35, how do they build it up? How do they build this relationship?
Well, the first thing is, I think they have to find and look at themselves. And they have to determine what's important in my life. Is scrolling entertainment important in my life? Maybe they don't know what's important in their life, and that may be their quest. I think it's real important to know. One of the things I learned with Dr. John Demartini is that every one of the human beings on the planet has 4,628 human traits. We have them all: murderer, saint, whatever. We all have those traits in us. But we have values, and values are those things that are most important to you. And if you know your top 3 values, you make your life dedicated to that. So for me, my number 1 value is to become more aware. My number 2 value is to teach. My number 3 value is personal connection. Everything I do evolves around those values. If it doesn't support those values, I'm bored. I'm literally bored. I think today people do not have that clarity. I went to this counseling center of kids who were put in counseling because they weren't doing well in school. And so after the first time I went there, I said, the next time, can I do my values workshop with you? The counselor said, yes. So I sat down with these 8 kids that were 13 to 16 years of age, walked through this hour-and-a-half process. When I got done, I said, tell me your top 3 values. And each of them had different ones. And I said, are you juiced about that? And they go, yes. I said, that's what you dedicate your life to right now. And you could see the visual change in them because they now had purpose. And I think today, that's where most young people are struggling. Do they have purpose? And if I don't, how do I find it? How do I find it? And it's not just young people. I think it's old people. I think people my age. I'm going to be 75 this year. And yet I was counseling. I got a call to counsel with a gentleman in Florida. Turned out he was 78 years old, and he contacted me for a session to find out, how do I create a spiritual practice that'll serve me? So we sat down based on what he's doing, and we created his spiritual practice. And I said, now try this and see if it works. So in 2 weeks, he's going to come call me back and tell me, do we need to modify it? Now here's a man 78 doing what a 21-year-old should be doing. Boy, I love that. And I've also learned that people are different. Everyone's going to have a different timing. There's no right timing for it. I know you have a teenage son. He's probably lost. He doesn't know what he wants to do in life. And so I went to college, went to 4 years of college, got a degree. I didn't know what I wanted back then. I think it's finding what juices you. Not only what juices you, but how can you use what juices you and be of service to greater numbers of people? And I think that's the key to abundance. When you find out that talent that you've got, that gift you got, and you can serve greater numbers of people, money will flow back to you. Number 1, you're doing what you love. Number 2, you're being of service to others, and it must come back.
Wow. I really like the way that you have articulated that a person needs to understand their top 3 values. Now, do these values necessarily need to be the same as the other in the relationship? Okay.
Not at all. Not at all. In other words, what I'll teach my wife has done the values workshop many times with me. Our values are very different. But what we do is, after we've done the values, I take my number 1 value and I say, how does it support her number 1, 2, and 3? How does my 2 support her 1, 2, and 3? How does my 3 support it? Then, how does vice versa? So we're literally doing this together, so our relationship is built on supporting and growing each other. So when I look at what is the purpose of a relationship, it's very simply this. It's to support and grow each other, it's to share, and it's to have fun. It's just that simple. People say, well, we're going to be in romantic love all your life. Trust me, I've been married over 53 years. You're not in romantic love all your life. But when I look at my Jeannie, I wouldn't trade her for the most beautiful young woman in the world, because this woman does everything to support and grow me. She doesn't acquiesce to me. She's not subservient. But if I'm out of alignment, she calls me on that. You know what, VJ? I want people in my life that call me when I'm doing junk. And so I love that. So when I look at her, I see an energy that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. And I think the advice I want to give to young people, be with people who have that energy that lifts you, that feels good, that is joy-filled, that is challenging. You don't want a partner that doesn't challenge you. You're not going to be great if you're not challenged. Every time I'm challenged, COVID hit. All of a sudden, I have this spiritual center in person, everything's going great. Now it's completely shut down. I pivoted. Now I went to a worldwide presence. So I have people now that I'm dealing with all over the world that would never have happened if it wasn't for that challenge. So every challenge is an opportunity to grow and to find new ways of being and giving your talent to the world.
Coming back to relationships, when you say that we are here with our top 3 values and how our values interact with the values of the other, what if there is no value? Now, this is not a hypothetical question. Sometimes you love a dog, and I know that you do, and I, as much as I do, I love my own dogs. They don't have the value system that we speak of. Yes, they show loyalty, they show love and affection, and they're just a joy to be there. But they per se do not bring anything. There'll be people in our lives that perhaps don't have the ability to bring anything to our value system. What do we do with them?
First off, let me change something you said. That dog has a lot of value. Number one, they unconditionally love me more than anything.
That is true.
And they will challenge me. Well, I don't want to get up in the middle of the night to take you out. But wait a second, you love me, I will take you out. Oh, wait a second, I put my food down, you ate my food. Well, wait a second, you do love me. So there is a challenge of accepting them as they are. So that's there. The other thing, going back to humans, you're not going to relate to everybody. It's that simple. You're vibrating at a specific frequency. I'm vibrating at a specific frequency. We're different in our frequency because of our energies. We're a little bit different, but there's a similarity. And that similarity is where you and I connect. There are people you're going to meet that there's not a similarity. I'm kind, I'm respectful, but they don't have much of a place in my life because we're not on the same journey. I've learned that that's part of life. If you think about, there's no 2 things in the universe alike. No 2 blades of grass, no 2 grains of sand. Nothing is alike. There's no 2 human beings alike, meaning every human being's at a different level of consciousness. Well, you're not going to relate to every human being. So why would you think you could? I just know, and I've learned, relationships come, they may stay, they may go. People come to agape, they get what they need, they leave. Some come back, some don't, some stay. It's all an energy. And so when you learn to love yourself, you don't take things personally. You understand that everyone's journey is so unique to them that you honor that. Yeah, you're going to get hurt. You're going to be hurt. Wait a second, you've been here 3 years. I thought we had something great going on. All of a sudden, you're ghosted me. Then you sit back and you go, the time I spent with them, was it valuable? Yes. They're no longer in my life. Okay, what does that mean? They've made space for someone new to come in. They made space for a whole new relationship to come in. And I'll tell you, if you understand that, you realize there's never a void in your life. When my mother died, there was no void. A bunch of people came and filled that void. When my father died, a bunch of people came and filled that void. I've had a lot of people come and go in my life. I grieve, I miss them, but someone always comes in to replace them.
The reason why I asked that question was that I have been observing that there's like a few people in my life that keep coming back, and it's a similar lesson for both them and I. And it's somehow we are not able to transcend. We still remain at the same place where we were a few years ago, and there is a lot of blaming and accusation. And then of course there's deep love and care, but it just continues. And I am of the mind that I can just walk away, but something makes me stick around. And I remain there, and the people go away and they circle back, and they go away and they circle back, which leads to a lot of frustration. And if we read about this on social media, they will tell you, the gods that be on social media, that there is a repetitive cycle of toxicity because you're not willing to let go. But I see it in another way. Perhaps this human connection is my lesson, and perhaps it's their connection as well. So should I stay or should I let it go?
First off, you're the one that's going to answer that. I believe that I've had the same experience. People who come back that still push my button, I'll use that term, it's because I haven't learned the lesson. Because if they came back and I learned the lesson, they could press my button and I wouldn't get agitated. But as long as I'm getting agitated, I realize, whoa. And I've got a lot of people, when you're doing ministry like I am, you have a lot of people that they want your energy. They want to come and get it. And I can remember one individual kept coming back, and it would just, I just get this feeling in me. And finally I said, wait a second. Lee, why are you attached to them being something different than they are? Once I got that, I said, oh, it's me. So the next time I interacted with them, I realized, wait a second, if I'm not attached to them becoming something different, I've got nothing invested. And when I was dealing with them, I didn't have the charge. And I was, that's my lesson. And the Buddha talked about that. He says, what's going to cause you suffering? Your attachment. It's not your desires. Desires are natural, but your attachment to that desire being a specific way, or that person being a specific way. You know who gives you the greatest challenge?
Who does?
Your wife. In my case, my wife or your wife. They challenge me the most because I'll tell you what, I know how to fix my wife, but she tells me to go pound sand because she doesn't want to go that way. And I have to learn that if I'm going to be in a relationship with my wife, I have to love her, which means I have to accept her as she is, and I am not her guru.
So just not the life partner that you have. I'm sure you have other relationships that are equally important, or maybe not as paramount as the relationship, you being married for so many years, your relationship with your children, your grandchildren, the people in your ministry, your friends, people that you have grown up with, people you played ball with. How many of those are still there? And how do you handle the complexities of the changing relationship? For example, your high school friends you were best buddies with, and some people still live in the grief that they are not there with those friends anymore, or that the relationship changed. They still feel agitated that the former co-worker in their previous company is not the same level of friends that they were when they were together. So I guess a lot of people who I believe are heart-centric, but they live in a constant grief or fear.
Yeah.
That I am afraid now to make newer relationships. I like you spoke about Jean. I like my wife, I love my wife, that's what you say, but because she's there and she's constant, what about those that are not constant?
I love this question because that means you're living in the past or you're living in the future. So right now, I'm with you. So my relationship with you is as deep as I can be in this moment. I'm expressing love, I'm being authentic, we're having great conversation. I don't miss Jean at all in this moment. I don't think about my high school friends at all in this moment because I'm solely, fully present with you. So my advice to everyone is, can you be present with whoever you're with? If you're present with whoever you're with, you're not going to miss anybody. So when I go off on one of my trips to India, Nepal, go around Mount Kailash, go in the jungles of Peru, I never think about my wife. I'm fully present with myself and who am I with in that moment. So I will reconnect with a couple college friends, but I don't miss them. When I'm with them, I'm fully engaged. But now I'm with you. When I leave you, I'll be with someone else, and then I'll be with someone else. So I try to be. Someone taught me this about a month ago, that a lot of times people will have a relationship with their wife or a husband. Every relationship is filtered through that relationship. Well, that skews every other relationship. Why not have every relationship on a linear line so that what you're doing is, when I'm with you, I am fully intimate and connected. Once I'm not with you, I'm fully and intimately connected with the next person, and then the next person. It could be the cashier at the grocery store. It could be someone in the gym. And I find that when people approach me in the gym, I drop everything and I'm fully present with them. If I'm going to give you my time, it's going to be fully present. So what am I doing? I'm being loving. So how can I be missing anything when I'm experiencing love in the moment? And that's where we get caught up. We get caught up in this past. We get caught up in the future. Forget the past and the future. They don't exist. The only thing that exists is, what am I doing and experiencing right in this moment? Who am I with, and how do we form that connection? See, this is the connection that people are looking for. What you and I are experiencing right here. They want intimacy. Intimacy means being fully authentic as yourself, knowing and really being humble. And being humble is to understand that you don't know everything. The more I study, I know this much, PJ. I have so much more to learn, so I don't put myself above anyone. I believe I can learn from everyone. And the only way I learn is through intimate connection.
That's beautiful. We are speaking with Reverend Lee Wolak on this podcast today, and we are talking about relationships. And so far, we have covered the understanding of relationship itself. That's paramount. What are your values and how they are working with your significant other or those around you? So relationship itself, your values, and then being in the present moment. That's highly imperative for you to understand yourself. He's already said it. You have to know where you stand. So Lee, we had this whole thought that we're gonna take this conversation in a certain way. I know that you had emailed me that this is possibly a good conversation to have, but I think we went like around it and reached the center. I think we are everywhere in this conversation about relationships. What comes to my mind is the authenticity, that people understand love as a need, love as something that they are entitled to in a relationship, because you command a cell phone, like whatever you want to watch. You command your television set with your remote, whatever you want to see, your music, everything as it is at your command. That's where life is right now. But love can never be at your command. And people expect that. So love is not a feeling, it is a state of being.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you had said to me about, I think the last we spoke 2 or 3 months ago, I think we were at a funeral. And so how do you explain that when everything is at your command?
It's interesting. I have a granddaughter. Last year, she's 7. She just turned 8 just the other day.
I see her on your podcast sometimes.
She's a wonderful guest. And Claire will always go, Baba, I love pink. Baba, I love that doll. Baba, I love this. And I said, Claire, can we pause for a second? You don't love them. You like them. And she sits back and she pauses. What does that mean, Baba? And I said, Claire, let me tell you what I think of you. Sometimes you're goofy, sad, joyful, you're bouncing around, you're sugared up. Do I ever yell at you? No. Why? Because I accept you. You're my granddaughter, so everything about you I accept. My love for you is a state of living. It's a state of being for you. It's easier for me to do that with my granddaughter. I've had to learn that to do that because I was taught all these lessons that you have to feel this feeling of love. It's got to be like, the infatuation stage when you meet your partner for the first time, and for that first year, oh my God, it's so great. Oh my God. Then you get married, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, she's leaving the bathroom door open. What happened here? That's not love. That's infatuation. Love is a state of being that you totally accept yourself authentically as yourself, and you accept the other person as themselves, and give them the freedom to be authentic, like you give yourself the freedom to be authentic. When you do that, you're in a state of non-judgment. That's the true state of love. This is where religion has it wrong. Religion talks about a God that's like Santa Claus that's going to judge you to go to heaven and hell. No, that's not God. That's man anthropomorphizing what God is. God is love, meaning God accepts you as you are. It does not judge you, because from the divine realm, anything we do in the human it's nothing. It's a no thing. But to the human, it is. So when I look at people and say, how can you love? Think about that dog that we talked about. You walk in the house, that dog just can't wait to see you. It's not expecting anything. There's the key word. I don't expect anything from my wife. I don't expect anything from Claire. I accept what is, and I move forward.
Now, in a completely layman terms, completely in a way that I have no idea about what a relationship should be, where does one start in their evolution? I understand that we make friends in school, we make friends in high school and in college, and then some of those relationships grow with us and we become intertwined. So knowing you for over 10 years now, Lee, I am a bit of you as I'm a bit of many other people. And so are you. You have met so many people. So this identification of self is a hard process. Where do I stand? Who am I? And if I am not identifying with myself, how will I be in a relationship? So could you give us a couple of ways to establish a sense of self, to know the sense of self, to understand one's own self, and what should be the rules? I guess it's a two-part question. What are the rules of engagement?
Ooh.
Simple.
Yeah. What I'm learning is that the single most important thing that a relationship has to be built on is that each party has to feel safe. They have to feel emotionally and physically safe. Without that, a relationship cannot be built. Once you have that, you feel safe, like I feel safe with you. Then from there, you have to say, is there something about that person that I'm attracted to? And if you're talking about a partnership, a life-type partnership, there has to be an attraction there. And how do you explain that? I don't know. But I can tell you that even though I'm in my 53rd year of marriage, I can meet a woman and I will find I'm attracted to them. Whoa, that would tell me that the possibility of a relationship exists. And I'm not just talking physical attraction. I'm talking an energetic attraction. Someone that you say, they would be fun to be with. They would be fun to explore things with. They're challenging. They cause me to see things differently. They're not judging me all the time. They're not trying to fix me, make me something different than I am. So many times as I do counseling, I witness people and they say, my partner says, in order for me to be this, I have to become this person, but that's not me. Well, if you're trying to fix someone, you're never going to have a relationship with them. You're never going to have a relationship with them. I think today, young people don't have role models of what relationships can look like. It was about 4 or 5 years ago that my sons came to me and said, we didn't realize how good we had it when we were kids. But when we think back, we realize all of our friends wanted to be at our house because they felt so comfortable with you and mom. Because you and mom have this energy about you that you're playful, you're joyful, you're supportive. Doesn't mean you don't have issues. You're going to have issues, but you work through them. My sons have never seen me raise my voice to my wife or my wife raise her voice to me. We've never yelled at each other. We've never cussed at each other. We love each other. Doesn't mean you don't do that, but the second you do that, you're going to feel like crap. Now, did I come from a home like that? No. My parents, when my mom died, they've been married 62 years. They shouldn't have been married a year. What I learned from my parents was do the opposite of what they do. So if I were saying to someone, how do you start a relationship? It's not online. It's in person. You want to be able to look into their eyes. You want to be able to feel their body language. You want to feel their energy. You want to see, can they converse with you and be authentic? You want to know that energy that they're radiating out, and that'll tell you everything. The energy people put out tells you who you spend time with. Not just in a relationship of a partnership, but in any relationship. If that energy doesn't flow, why are you wasting your time?
So we spoke a lot about marital relationship. Let's take this relationship into an office. Young people, old people, whoever they are, they get their jobs and they're in an office now. What do you think about relationships in social equations? How do people navigate that social structure? Who's a friend? Who's a co-worker? How much should I share? How does that work? Because you just said everything is energy. And if everything is energy, every co-worker and every person who's going to hit back at you when you are not watching them is a part of the whole universe. So how do you navigate that?
That's a difficult one. Because being in the corporate world for 32 years, man, I worked with some flaming idiots.
And they better not be watching this tonight.
I'm using that word kindly because I could say a lot worse. And many times I didn't know how to deal with it. The only way you learn how to deal with this, you're in that moment and you ask the question, what would be the highest thing I could do in this moment? So do I have friends from the corporate world? I still have 2. I've been out of the corporate world for 20 years now, 22 years. I still have 2 gentlemen that I keep in touch with. But that's it. I realized that in the corporate world, it wasn't based on anything but getting the job done. And that's unfortunate. But I'll tell you what, the most important thing about being in the corporate world and that is doing something you love. If you're doing something with you love, you're going to radiate that energy, and then the people in that office are going to know that. And here's a key thing. Treat people good. The company may be bad, but you treat the people you work with good. I was a VP. Everyone that worked for me, I treated with high respect. I did whatever I could. I always checked in on them. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Is there something I can train you on to make your job easier? You learn this as you go. You want to do everything you can to help another person have it easier in their job. You do that, you're making a business friend. And business friends are going to be different than personal friends. Let's just be honest about that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to be wrong, but I've not found that. I find that it's very difficult in the role of being a spiritual teacher to be a close friend of people in my community, because they put me in a position that I don't want to be put in as a spiritual teacher and elevated me. So they're looking at me differently. So when I truly want to express intimacy, I go outside of my community. I'll come and talk to you or a couple other people. I think you have to find 2 to 3 people in your life that are not a part of everyday life that you can go to and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Where am I missing? Where am I missing out? You know me. What am I missing out on? and then you can listen. You're even more vulnerable there, but it's a conscious vulnerability. I think that's real important, what I just said. You want to make sure that you're consciously choosing who you're being vulnerable with. And if your intuition says, don't hire that person, don't be vulnerable with that person, you listen to that intuition. You may not have any logic, but there's a gut feeling involved. I violated that gut feeling twice in my corporate world. Biggest mistakes I ever made.
I tell people, and I don't know if it is right or wrong, that your coworkers are not your friends. They're not your family. You're there to do a job and get paid for it.
Yep.
So that environment does not leave too much space for opening the heart. Do you think you agree?
I agree, but you can be open, you can be kind, you can be respectful,
Of course.
and you can be considerate. I think if you're kind, respectful, and considerate, I think you're doing magnificent work in the world because you're now a role model of love in the workplace.
So I wanna take a pause here and go back to your value system that you mentioned, that you have workshops and such. So I really want to ask, what are your offerings now to people who would want to understand a little bit more about relationships or other things? What's happening in your world, Lee?
Well, the first thing is I say, I've got a library. That library is my podcast or my YouTube channel. I've got over 3,300 videos on YouTube. So any topic you can imagine is out there. Also, I lead a guided meditation every morning on Zoom at 7:02 Central Time for 20 minutes every day, based on a thought for the day that I send out. So if people wanted, they could go to agapespiritualcenter.com, sign up for my daily thought. They'll get the daily thought. They can go to the calendar. They'll find out the Zoom link for the meditation. I teach classes in the evenings. They can check in on that. If they want a values workshop, they can schedule a private one with me, or they can get a group of people together. We could do a values group, or I offer it as a workshop. I'm constantly offering new things. And everything I do is for the purpose of that person finding out how to better self-love. So I'm available. I'm also a certified hypnotist. So if they want to be hypnotized and have something deeply implanted into their subconscious mind, I can do that for them as well. So there are so many different things. If they wanted to, they could schedule for a fee a private session with me. And we could figure out what it is in their lives that they may want to do. We could set up a schedule. We could set up a spiritual practice for them that they could start on. So I'm open to serving people. You said my mission at the beginning. I want to touch one life each and every day. If I do that, I will touch millions by the time I leave this planet. So if I can do that with one person, anyone watching this video, check in on Agape Spiritual Center. I'm willing to work with you on anything that your heart desires.
Fantastic. That's such a joy to know that the basic context of our show is to highlight individuals, guides, teachers that are here in the Dallas-Fort Worth region that are available to help people with their insights, as you are. And it just astonishes me the lack of self-awareness that people have and their lack of discipline to want to grow in life. In a way, Lee, and here's a question for you. In a way, they say ignorance is bliss. So wherever they are, that's where they are, and they're happy with where they are. So is that the right place to be? Or is there some necessary karma a person needs to have in life to evolve?
I think life is that karma. And I think when that person's ready, there will be such an inner pulling from within them, from their heart center, that they'll be seeking. I know what happened for me when I told you I was 47 years old before I went back to spirituality. I had to go through all of the stuff I did in the corporate world, all of my raising of kids, all of that. And then I said, wait a second, there's something missing in me. What is it? And then that led me to question. I think that DNA is in every human being.
So in order for that growth to happen, or the feeling of growth to happen, you say that there has to be a pain point or a feeling of something is missing?
That's my experience. I don't know of anyone who just started off, oh, I feel joyful, let me find more of this. I think we're in the human body. We have feelings, we have emotions, we have body, we have suffering, we have contrast, and we have to begin to form a relationship with that. And then all of a sudden, spirituality, or what we're talking about here, is about how do I manage that? How do I weave a thread where I've got my human and my divine, and they're woven together? Now, how do I live in balance, going between the spiritual and the divine? And when that starts to become the question, the answers start coming and people start seeking. I know right now I'm ready to do more growth because I feel there's something more that I'm just not aware of right now. That's why I'm planning a trip to India. Why? I just know there's something there. I'm being called. It's that internal thing. It's not the place. Trust me. It's me getting away from my life as it is so I can see something greater. And then I know that the divine in me will bring it out and I'll have my answer.
Now, you've also been to South America, and I know that you had shared with me some time back, a few years ago,
Yep.
about your experience there. Would you care to share what you experienced? Because that was about finding your own self.
Yeah. I'd heard about the journey on ayahuasca. For those who don't know, ayahuasca is the combination of the leaves of a plant and the bark of a tree, and they brew it together. And they have ceremonies where a shaman leads the ceremony, and it is the most powerful, natural, hallucinogenic. And so in the ceremony, what happens when you drink the ayahuasca, everything in your, about an hour, hour and a half in, I'm not going to describe, you're going to be puking, you're going to be doing all this stuff, but an hour and a half in, your subconscious mind starts to play out. And you have no control for about 6 hours. So I did it. I was there 10 days. I did it on alternate nights. I did it 5 times. 4 of the nights were horrific. I had demons playing out. I had all this stuff playing out. On one night, I experienced love beyond anything I can even imagine. I can't even describe it. What it made me realize was that there is a world so much greater than I've even imagined. And why am I in fear of the little piddly-ass things that I'm worried about here when that world is infinite? And even in that ayahuasca journey, I realized it was only a fraction of what my mind was playing out. But what it did give me, there were certain things that popped out in those dark moments that I had that I realized I hadn't done enough forgiveness work on. They were still there, repressed in my emotions. This is the story that came out. I came out of the journey. We came back into this little town called Tarapoto, and we were spending the night there. First time I've been out of the jungle in 11 days. They had Wi-Fi. I got on WhatsApp. I called my wife. And I said to Jean, I said, I know that the excess weight that you are carrying is because of repressed emotions that I'm responsible for creating in you. And I started to tear up. I can feel it right now. I'm going to tear up. And I said to her, I said, I promise that for the rest of my life, you will never have to do it again, and I will make it up to you. That's when I started my journey of really loving my wife, accepting her all as she is, and it changed everything. So that was my benefit.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So, a question for you. Is it necessary to have a journey with ayahuasca or in some other way to have this catharsis arise?
No. I just remember the story when I met Ram Dass in Maui. So I had some experience with Ram. And Ram told the story about how he was doing LSD at the time with Timothy Leary. And he went to his guru, and his guru took the bag of like 20 LSD pills, popped it in his mouth, and it had no effect on him. He said, don't you ever do this again. You do not need this. Your mind is already bigger than any LSD could do. So you don't need to do it. I know people that are out there on the media, social media, they've had 200, 250, 400 journeys on ayahuasca. And I'm saying, well, that's an addiction. You don't need that to have a journey. All you have to do is close your eyes and go inside.
That is what the inner temple is about.
Exactly. We're back to where we began.
Well, I thank you for being on this podcast today. I am deeply appreciative, and I think that speaking about just the relationship is kind of like just skimming the surface. I know that there's a lot more where this has come from, and I am excited that we're going to have you back, I think, several times on our show so that we can go into the depths and onto this journey with you more and more.
I am so grateful to be with you, and I would tell your audience, if you have questions, write them in the comment section. Let us get those questions together. We'll put them together and then we'll address them with another guest or with myself. So this is our gift to you as a community out there. VJ and I love VJ. I think VJ is doing incredible work out there. He brings that Eastern perspective that I don't have. So there's a real balancing going on here. So I invite you to tap into VJ and all the beautiful things he offers as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
The Inner Temple, a Mystic Mandala podcast, is here for you, connecting you with local healers, readers, guides, therapists, teachers, everyone that you need as a resource to connect you back to yourself, to bring you back inward to the inner temple. So we would love for you to connect with us. Like, share, subscribe, as they say. And also, if you know someone that brings value to your life and has brought value to many others, please send them our way. We would love to connect with them. Until next time, this is Vijay at the Inner Temple.